Francisco's Mayor London Breed has found herself on the hot seat over a letter she wrote to outgoing Governor Jerry Brown seeking clemency and a reduction of sentence for her brother, who is in jail for manslaughter. Joining us now is Rory Little, UC professor of law and also a former prosecutor himself. Let's take a look at this. We hear about pardons, clemencies. What is going on here? What is the request for?
Well, so first, she's not asking for pardon. She's asking for a commutation. That just means cutting the sentence. He's already done 19 years, I think, 20 years in jail on a 40-some-year sentence. There's a whole phenomenon of mass incarceration out there, young black men being put in jail. Now, that doesn't change what this guy did, and I don't think he's likely to get a commutation. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the mayor asking for it. That's her brother in there. If she hadn't asked for it, you know, you'd just say, well, he doesn't deserve it. Even his sister won't support it. So, you know.
Now, it's not just up to the governor, right? I mean, you have a board of prison appeals, and then the governor, and then the Supreme Court has a say as well, right?
I think that's true on pardons. I'm not sure on commutations. I think on commutations, the governor has pretty much clear authority to do what he wants.
How many commutation requests do you think the governor gets?
I'm sure he gets hundreds, maybe thousands even. I mean, there's a lot of people in prison in California.
And traditionally, how does it work? How do they tend to do it? Do you know?
Well, different offices have done different things. Usually he's got advisors who sort of advise him. You know, there's a formalized process to this. You submit a form.
What is the difference between, because we're hearing this also from the White House on down, what's the difference between a commutation and a pardon? When they say the president's going to pardon somebody, what does that mean?
Well, a pardon wipes out your conviction. A pardon is effectively allows you to deny it in the future, things like that. It has certain collateral effects.
Even if you've been found guilty?
Even if you've been found guilty.
How does that work? How do we have a democracy? That seems almost something like out of the royal...
It is ancient medieval history, but it's always been the prerogative of the executive to grant a mercy. This is pure mercy. It's not law. And it exists in every state and every nation.
Is that a holdover from our times with Britain? I mean, to a lot of people go, you have laws, you have rules, they follow it, and why should somebody be able to just sort of...
Well, it's the power of the king, and a lot of people think with mass incarceration, this power should be exercised more, because we can't afford to keep all these people in prison, and there's a lot of inequity, particularly racial inequality. So, you know, it's not a bad thing to have a little safety valve for certain cases. This case doesn't strike me as one that's likely to get it. It's not very compelling.
Right. Well, it's interesting to see how it's going to play out in the court of public opinion. Government shutdowns. Will we withdraw troops from Syria? Outgoing cabinet members. Washington another week. But behind it all, we have the Robert Mueller investigation. And joining us now for the latest developments of this is Rory Little, the professor at UC Hastings, our go-to guy on all things prosecutorial. What is going on? I mean, plea agreements rejected, this and that and the other. What is going on?
You know, it's a blizzard. It's a blizzard because you can't keep track of everything. You can't see the whole picture because there's too much happening. You've got Whitaker, this acting attorney general. There's a big controversy right now. You've got Mike Flynn, whose sentencing has now been put off.
Former national security advisor.
Former national security.
I wanted to ask you about that. You go in, usually when you cut a plea agreement with somebody, everybody's in agreement. That's why it's called a plea agreement. Yeah. This one, he walks in and the judge says, I'm not sure, I might just send you to jail. Where does that put Robert Mueller and his team if they can't come through with their side of the deal?
Well, they didn't promise probation. They just said, we don't oppose it. They said, you know, he's only exposed to 6 months. And they said anywhere between probation and 6 months is fine. I mean, they really didn't back away from anything. Meanwhile, the Twitter tactic of accusing the FBI of misconduct really set the judge off, and the judge said, no, we're gonna make sure this sticks.
Okay, so where do we go going forward on this? Because after this, what's left?
Well, there's a lot of things still out there. Now, Mueller, I think, is trying to wrap things up, but he's not going to wrap it up until he ties all the bows. We have some secret proceeding going on in front of the grand jury right now in Washington, D.C. with appeals on bond petitions. Nobody knows who's even in there. There's a foreign corporation, apparently. We've got Russians indicted. Everybody forgets about them. If we grab one of them somewhere, they might talk.
We have the Russian investigation, but as the Russian investigation progresses, we have these other offshoots, like the Cohen paying off the women to hide the stories. Right. Now, if the president he wind up being an unindicted co-conspirator in a campaign violation thing?
Well, he already is directly implicated in that felony violation. I mean, the other thing that's happening here is the House of Representatives is going to change in a couple of weeks. And when that happens, suddenly you're going to have another investigation happening. Something is going to happen on the Democratic side in the House. They have the power to file articles of impeachment if they want to.
Think Mueller's getting just tired of this?
I think Mueller is ready to wrap things up. He's done his job, but you know, he's not going to do it until he's ready, and he's not influenced by any of this publicity.
Okay. Well, we aren't influenced by the publicity, and so is the public. That's what it's up. You have your court and your court of public opinion.